and welcome to another episode of the Learning and Design Mastermind Vodcast, the vodcast that bridges the worlds of instructional design and project management. I am Daisy Ann Barreto, your host, and with me is Dr. Conklin, Sherry Conklin, who is your co-host for this podcast. And I'm thrilled to be your guide as we explore the exciting intersection of these two dynamic fields. And in each episode, we'll explore the latest trends, case studies, practical tips from professionals in the field that can help you deliver exceptional learning experience while also keeping your projects on time. Here with us today is Daniel Shields, who is a current student in our program. And Daniel, could you please tell us more about your position? Where are you currently working and what do you do?
Absolutely. I am the Learning Management System Administrator at Western Carolina University. I manage our installation of Canvas and the back-end code that connects from Banner to Canvas to populate students, to populate courses, and I manage all of our fun integrations from Panopto to all sorts of other ones, Poll Everywhere, etc. on that. I think we have about 15 in total.
Wow, that's quite a lot. And I know that you can always include some more to integrate in, especially since you're talking about technology integration, within the LMS. What would you say are some key technological features that make, an LMS effective for both students and faculty? Does it depend, does it depend of maybe the university, the faculty, the students, the course content? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the course content and the faculty play probably the biggest role for the best student experience on that. You can have, there's different LMSs, Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, etc., but a well-designed course in any of those systems is going to be the best for the student experience. And a good, well-designed course is something that students can easily go through. And a bad design course, you know it when you see it, and it doesn't matter which system it's in. You'll see it, and the best LMS in the world can't save poor course design. So instructional design and having a well-designed course is, to me, the most pivotal thing for learners to be able to go in and learn.
That's great. And especially because it's like, I'm gonna put myself in a position of someone that may be hearing this and have no idea whatsoever how these two integration work. Can you talk about like how do integrations work with like an LMS to enhance functionality or even to the presentation of content for the student or the faculty, at least from your experience, how you're using this in the context that you work?
Absolutely. The different integrations really supplement what the LMS provides out of the box. The best comparison that I would have would be like a browser plugin for Firefox, like AdBlock Plus is one most people are familiar with that blocks pop-ups, ads, etc. But LTIs and other integrations really increase what you can do with an LMS. For Panopto, for example, it's a system similar to YouTube for us that you can upload videos, edit videos, etc., and then you can do video content for your courses. We have a lot of them that extend what you can do. There's ones that extend discussion boards to give you more options there. There's some that let you, like VoiceThread, let you record and do kind of virtual video discussion boards. You also have some which kind of go the ADA route, which helps people with disabilities learn as well. There's some for sign language. There's some for hearing impairment. They really can extend that way. And another area, also integrations are popular with publishers. Every publisher seems to have their own integration, and those integrations help connect to that publisher's content. And that may be different things such as homework sets, exams out there from the publisher. Some publishers even have labs and other interactive materials that you can use. So it really extends all that and brings it back to the LMS, which is great because then you have a centralized place for your grades, you have a centralized place for your communication with your students, you have a centralized place for your course virtually. And that is the key, I think, for teaching and learning online, is that you have just a centralized place all the students can go to, and get their assignments, find out what they're doing this week, check out their reading materials, go here, do the activities, do the assessments, and the LMS really empowers that.
That's wonderful. And then one of the things that I was going to ask, especially like when you're talking about like, the benefits of the integration, do you see any challenges? What are some maybe challenges and issues that as an LMS administrator that you would face when you're trying to integrate some of these tools, either from a faculty or students, like, as they're seeing at their end?
Absolutely. There's a large amount of challenges with these. I think the biggest challenge is no tool is ever as advertised by the vendor. Whatever they promise you, it never actually does 100% what you're wanting it to do. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it works. One of the other challenges is making sure you're using your existing tools well. Tools are not cheap. Some of these tools can range anywhere from a few $1,000s to 15, $30,000. I mean, if you're looking at some of the bigger tools like Turnitin, those can be hundreds of $1,000 contracts. So you have to make sure what you have, what functionality it has, and that you're not duplicating that functionality. In higher education, unlike the corporate world, it seems funding's a lot more limited, and spending that money is a lot more trickier. So you have to be a good steward of that and make sure that you're using that funding the way that it should be. Also, you have to make sure that none of your tools cause interference with other tools and that they still have a good experience in that. For example, making sure gradebook pass back is a smooth tool. I have seen some where it just doesn't pass to the grades. It's not the same grade. And you got to be extremely careful of what you integrate because it affects your faculty experience, your teaching experience, and it affects the learner's experience too. So there's a lot of quality there that you have to check on. And that actually makes it kind of a lengthy process to integrate, maintain, and keep these tools running.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think like that's truly one of the things that I've seen, and I think some of the other interviews or podcasts that we have had with other guest speakers, they kind of like mentioned that, and so I appreciate you kind of like reinforcing some of from your perspective and how you have seen that. Another thing that I was going to ask you is, especially as we are seeing these integrations, is like how important it is for an LMS to be customizable to meet the unique needs of different education institution, and maybe to what extent it is important to then have these third-party tools to come in to help when the customization does not work, or is it even worth it?
I think that depends on your institution and the tolerance for risk that that institution has. Ourselves, we tend to not do any custom code outside of what we need to integrate with Banner, et cetera, just because it's so much to maintain. For example, with Canvas, they push out an update every 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And if you have any custom CSS, any custom code, there's a very strong chance that that code will break eventually as they push out updates because big vendors, Canvas, Blackboard, et cetera, don't really care what your custom code is. They have to make their solution fit one size fits all. And in Canvas, that's K through kindergarten through higher education. So they have a huge presence in both areas. So they have to fix what they push out works for elementary school and it works for higher ed. And unfortunately, custom code that we do for higher ed will eventually break. And that's just a lot of time to go back, fix that, provide that user experience. So for us, we don't like that out of the box or changing it out of the box. We rely more on tools to do that for us that we pay for and are managed by a third party. There are schools that do the custom code, and that's fantastic, but they also have tend to be bigger schools with a lot more funding and a lot more staff. So that's a big stumbling block, I think, for some schools as they try to get into that code to customize it. And it's risky. And I'm very risk averse in that area. And I do think LTIs provide that extension that it's just, the time you spend developing and paying a developer to do it and maintain it, is it cheaper just to buy it? Buy versus build is a very huge discussion that I think in higher education IT that is something that's going to stick around for a very long time.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing that. And I also do think that as you're mentioning is that cost and benefits, and also probably too is because there are other things such as security, right? Like, safety for you have to test, so by then it's just like there's a tool here that can just easily give us what we need and for maybe like a less cost. And then another buzzword that people keep talking about, especially related to LMS, in addition to now the buzzword of AI, is like data analytics. And so my question to you is like, how do you use that, or in your position, how do data analytics and reporting tools with LMS benefit an LMS administrator, a faculty in assessing student performance, and even improving instructional strategies?
Absolutely. All the LMSs have been pushing more and more data analytic options to users of all kinds. And Canvas faculty have more tools than ever, I think, they've had in recent years, with the ability to see student activity, how many times this content is viewed, when this student has viewed it, how active the student is. You can set up alerts in to see, hey, this student hasn't logged in 3 days. Maybe I need to shoot them an email and see if they're okay. You have so much ability to ensure student success, test analytics to see if your questions are fair. Does all the class miss a question, or does some of the class miss a question? You've got so much ability already for instructors without having to involve anyone, and without having to involve IT or anyone to do that. That it's amazing how much ability instructors have. I think a lot of people, both faculty and students, don't realize that in an LMS, almost every action you do is logged and it's part of a database somewhere. And if you turned in your homework or not, it's there. If the instructor doesn't log in, it's there. So there's a lot of accountability that data can be leveraged for both sides to improve faculty experiences, to improve student experiences. And I think that's great. Um, from my standpoints, with all the data kind of looking over the top of it, there's a lot of ethics with the data as well. Of sure, we can say, compare success of two different sections but taught by two different teachers, but are they at the same times? Are the learners at the same skill level? There's so many variables and things that you can do that it's a really big puzzle to take a look at and try to assess how the learners are learning there, and the different ethics of it. Not all faculty teach the same. Uh, Different learners learn the same. So learners learn differently. So there's a huge disparity between what you can do with your data and should you do that with your data. And I think the ethical questions of just a raw database of learner and instructor data has a lot of questions behind it.
That's very interesting and fascinating to hear that. And it's a good way for us to also think like, students cannot say, well, my dog ate my homework when it talks about like submission, something needs to be there to pretty much for the instructor to do that, to then assess the learner. But also one of the things that I keep thinking is like, our faculty prepare, like, do they know all that, all that the LMS can do? And this is going to be my question to you is like, in your institution, how do you guys ensure that faculty members are well equipped to use these tools in an LMS effectively?
I think this is one of the biggest things that we've been trying to leverage and teach about and get the word out on, that is about these tools and how to improve on that. Um, Unfortunately, in higher ed right now, there is a large amount. I mean, you have a lot of full-term faculty, but you also have a lot of adjunct faculty that come in and from other schools and teach their classes the same way at every school. And not every school is running the same tools, the same LMS. It can be a mess, and you can get that person hired at the last minute, and they don't know Canvas, they don't know Blackboard, and they don't have the time to learn those tools. So one thing that's one of our goals for 2024 is to, try to make some video guides on how to do this, explain what they mean, work with our faculty center to try to get that out there and see if we can help instructors who have the time to learn to do that, and to see if we can help them with that. But I think that's one of the hardest parts is faculty members are more strapped for time than they ever have. They're not just teaching, they're on committees. They're probably on at least two, maybe more. They have other jobs to do with so many other things, advising at some institutions. It's just a lot of work, plus grading on top of that. It's they only have so much time, and it doesn't really fit into a 40-hour work week. So for them to have the time to get that professional development, to get in there and do that, it's tricky. So yeah, I think you have people who want to know that knowledge, but then you have some who just don't have the time for that knowledge. And we do what we can, but I think there's still a large gap of faculty, not just at our institution, but everywhere, who just don't have the time to dig into that.
No, and then you definitely capture what maybe from the side of a faculty member, trying to really they want to learn, but it's like, that time. And I think like all that can be tricky. And especially as you said, then providing that support may need to be either upfront or it can be something that it's ongoing. And my question to you would be like, especially still related to this topic is like, what are some of the common challenges that, maybe the faculty members at your school, like, face when using an LMS, and how have how have the institution, and in that case, like you in that capacity, helping bridge those challenges, and overcome those challenges that the faculty is facing, and is there like ongoing support as well for them?
Absolutely. One thing that we've done to try to provide that ongoing support, because we realize from students to faculty, everybody's got time where they're available to do this, and it doesn't always mesh with the time IT is available. We do have a help desk that you can call from, I think, 7:30 to 7 o'clock at night. It's almost 12 hours where it's open. But one thing we've done is we've made a course for faculty, Canvas 101. I've set up a script to enroll all faculty into it, to where if you only have 30 minutes and you need to know how to do this, how to make these kind of assignments, how to do certain things in Panopto discussion boards, how to basically, if you're strapped for time, what's the fastest way to learn how to do this? And that's been a bigger hit with our faculty. It seems that they've really been able to get in there and learn with that, because we realize they don't have time for a long class. So we try to keep everything in 30-minute chunks. We've pushed out a lot of knowledge base articles that's in something faculty, once they're logged in, can log into our IT portal and search. I want to say we have over 150 different Canvas articles on how to do various things in Canvas. And we've done that with students as well. We have a course that all students are enrolled in, Passport to Canvas. It's basically how to use Canvas, how to submit an assignment, how to email your instructor, how to do other things like that. And that gives students who aren't coming from maybe a school in K-12 who use Canvas an ability to learn it and answer those questions. And that's been useful for us as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And one other thing that, especially as you're mentioning it, and I see like, this, uh, the issue of like, faculty not having the time. And I think like my next question might lead to the answer, is like, what are some of the technological advancements that you foresee shaping the future of learning management systems, and I keep thinking like, especially technology such as AI.
Well, AI is definitely the buzzword at every single conference I've been to this year. It seems like there were zero AI vendors in 2022, and now half the vendors are AI vendors. And some of them have some, I mean, interesting things. I know a large amount is plagiarism detection with AI, which is an entirely different discussion. But there are some tools that are some vendors are pushing with, hey, well, why don't the faculty just, push in what they want the outcomes to be, and we'll generate the discussion board prompts, and we'll generate different assignments based on that. So you can type in some keywords and we'll do it for you. And it looks like there's going to be those tools available. Certainly, how effective they are, the ethics behind them, and just the cost as well. None of them seem to be very cheap tools. I do think that'll be able for some faculty, and I eventually see AI coming in as a kind of a assistant to everybody at that point. It's just how everyone reacts to having that assistant and the ethics behind having that assistant. But I do think there's tools that allegedly can help faculty run their courses and write assignments and create content now. So I'm sure some institution will buy them.
And I think like, that has been also the conversations that I've seen. And I think it is that portion of facilitating that work. And especially as you're saying, like, if someone comes, you need to teach this course next week, that building of content in that time frame can be pretty difficult. And then having some of these tools to assist, and as I said, some of them might not want it. So, and then there's still the ethics behind. And I do think like there's more conversation to go through on that as well. And the other question that I had here, it also involved AI, but also one of the things that people keep talking about is the notion of virtual reality as well. So do you see that maybe some of these, emerging technology like artificial intelligence and virtual reality could impact or could be used in the evolution of LMS in the future? And
Absolutely.
how?
I do think virtual reality is already, there are vendors out there who have some very interesting virtual reality products, especially for healthcare and other things, where you can view bones, you can view muscles and that. And there's just certain classes that I don't think translate well to an LMS. And just currently, because text, video, you really can't see muscles. You can't see for physical therapy. I mean, you can watch videos, but you can't do that. Same thing with forensic anthropology, the bones and everything. You can't. There's a tactile element missing, and I'm not sure with virtual reality it's going to meet all of that, but I think it'll bridge the gap a lot. And I think in healthcare, especially, a lot of schools are transitioning to VR rooms and other experimental VR technologies to implement that. So I see that being something that is not going away. I see the biggest inhibitor on that is cost as well. Unfortunately, great emerging technology costs a lot, and it's not something that you're quick to integrate with that kind of cost and risk, unfortunately.
Exactly. And then also, I mean, when we think about you, it's like, the users as well, like, the students, the faculty, if they also need to have like a computer that's a new computer that can truly use those technologies as well.
That's so true. And I think that's a big issue as technology keeps advancing with streaming, with all these new things, and unfortunately, computer specs s- don't for most users. I mean, if you walk in and buy a machine at Best Buy or Walmart or somewhere like that, they're not capable of doing the high-end things out of the box. And then you have the equity conversation of, is this inclusive to the learners of all incomes? Are learners going to be left behind because they can't afford these machines? And I think that's a huge issue. Maybe there's these colleges that do that can get grants for helping students get better machines, maybe not, but there's so many ethical issues of that, especially when you're trying to include learners who want to learn, but they may not have the laptop capabilities. So
Thank you, Daniel, for bringing that perspective, because I do think it is something that needs to be discussed, and not just like, here we have all these tools and technology, but also like, can the students access, right? Like, do they have it? And we know that some students, they are, or there are some schools that they are even trying to do open textbook as one way of, you know, reduce the cost for students because they already have to pay tuitions, and then still on top of that, you have all this technology and a computer with like a good specs. They're not cheap.
no.
And then not everybody can afford those as well. So we are getting close to the end of this podcast here, and I have been enjoying our conversation. But so for us to wrap it up here, what final thoughts or advice would you offer, to maybe a student, or someone that just graduated, or even people that are in the field that they are seeking to be in a position like yours? What would you tell them? Like, what does that really look like? What are some of the things that they may need to think about, so they can say like, this is the job for me?
Well, I think I'm in an interesting perspective on that because I came from the corporate world from software development. I wasn't in education at first. And for me, One nice thing about education is it does have a better work-life balance in software development where you're doing 80 plus hours a week. And I think that appeals to that. I do think there's less money in education than there is in the corporate world, but I think you get your time back to spend with your family, and I think that that matters too. So I do think if you're interested in the field, you have to learn to love to learn. It changes rapidly. You can't just get a degree and then sit on it and not change. Everything changes rapidly from technology to the emerging pedagogy, what's currently hot, everything changes. And you have to truly enjoy learning. And sometimes it's about things you don't necessarily love to learn about. As a tech guy, a developer from that side, it took me a while to warm up to the pedagogy side. When I was sitting in meetings, it was like, why am I here for this? And it wasn't necessarily fun, but I embraced it and I learned to love it. But the same thing if you're looking to come at it from an instructional designer side and you don't like writing any SQL statements or writing any kind of code, you got to learn to love it because a lot of smaller schools and even medium-sized schools don't have a lot of people. So you'd end up wearing multiple hats. So you got to learn to do a lot of different things, but it's rewarding and you get to actually do something that kind of matters and you get to have a positive impact on people learning. And I think that is it's pretty satisfying at the end of the day, and that satisfying for me.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate you sharing this with us and sharing more about, like, your expertise and, and your work and what you do and some of the benefits, the challenges, so if someone is willing and interested in this position, they can, pursue this career, what they need to do or what they're going to be facing as they work in that field. So I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate you. And for those of you that are listening, we appreciate you taking the time to watching this video. Thank you so much. And I hope we can see each other again in this podcast here that we're having. So thank you so much.
Thank you.